Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining in. Welcome to another episode of Know Better, Do Better. It's a podcast and a radio show. I'm your host. I'm Leonard Jr. And we have a fantastic show for us today, for you today, and for me as well. But the show we're talking about mental health. I know a lot of people are struggling out here in 2020 and COVID and everything that's going on, the lockdowns, being away from your family, the mental health issues, depression, the suicide rates are going up. So I wanted to bring in a panel to talk about what's going on, to try to get some advice from people that have been through some things, the struggles, and know that you're not alone in what you're going through. We're here to try to give you a little bit of information and some insight about what's happening. And we appreciate you joining in. I want to first talk about my amazing panel here. So first, to my virtual left is Pastor Pearl Pierce. Pastor Pierce, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. And then over to my virtual right, top right, I have Marie Parker. She's a Navy veteran, and she has worked on the SAPR program. She has done workshops for destructive behavior all throughout the military. And we're so happy to have you here. Thank you for being here, Marie.
Thanks, Ray.
And then in my bottom left, I may be wrong, but here, you guys just if you're watching, you know. And then I have Prince P.J. Daniels. Prince is one of the record holders for college football from Georgia Tech and an NFL star. And he has a new project, a new book, and he's called Mindfulness for the Ultimate Athlete. And Prince, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And then we have Stephanie Gaddis from the Pink Berets, another veteran. We thank you, Stephanie, for being here. She's done so much outreach and so many things to help people, in the military. So we appreciate you being here. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You guys have seen Dr. Joy Wright many, many times. She may be under Jack Wright today or Zoom, but Dr. Joy Wright is my business partner in Launch Team Consulting, and she is a doctorate of organizational development and a master's in psychology. So she's going to keep us in line today. Dr. Joy is also a Navy veteran. So welcome to the show, Dr. Joy.
It is an honor to be here always, Ray. Thank you.
So the topic that we're talking about is a tough topic. So many people are struggling with mental health issues. There's such a major stigma behind it. Nobody likes to say I'm struggling. Nobody likes to say I'm going through some things. But nowadays, I think it's imperative for all of us that have been through some things, that have overcome some issues, to have a conversation and tell everybody that it's okay to be vulnerable, okay to struggle. And, I want to first talk to you guys about what's going on today and the state of mental health in America. Whoever will jump in first to answer this question, but Joy, actually, I'll go to Joy first. Joy, what do you think the current mental state of a lot of folks in America right now are with the lockdowns from COVID, from the stress of not being able to see your family, friends, and loved ones, and just everything that the terrible cycle of news that's continuous, that you always hear something negative. So how do you think from yourself and from America here right now are dealing with this?
I think, first of all, Ray, that's obviously a great question. I think we've gone through different stages. I think right in the beginning, back in March, I think March 13th is when we found out that we were going into lockdown. There was a little novelty to that. So getting new things, finding out where you were going to work out in your house. And so people seem to be handling things for the first few weeks, just the novelty of it, not getting on the highway, driving into work and things like that. But as months have gone on, we have lost some of our routine. We have lost some of our ability to check in. And so I think shows like this, where we talk about mental health and look at how people are doing and have those honest conversations about where we are in society and what we can do. As you know, I always look at the side of what are some solutions? So yes, the news is scary, and it's scary for young kids, it's scary for teenagers, and it's scary for adults. So where do we go from there? And so that's a lot of things I read on research and looking at studies, and we have some out there for month-long studies of the different countries and where we are. So I think there are solutions, and I have a few ideas there, but I know the panel has some great ideas as well. So I think that's where we are right now. I think everybody's a little scared and nervous.
Yeah, I mean, because I know when it first happened in March, I was like, okay. My kids were happy. They're like, we're out of school. It's all good. We're going to be doing our thing. And I'm like, all right, maybe I can take a few weeks off of work and we'll be right back at it. And now here we are 9, almost 10 months later, and we're still in the same predicament. And it's getting worse. And so, I feel for, all the families that are going through stuff. I look at it myself. I've been blessed to be in a house with my family and kids, but my daughter is in New York in an apartment. So I know every single community, every person has having a different experience with this. So, I want to ask Pastor Pearl, Pastor Pierce, like, what is it like? What are you hearing from your community, from the church and everything? I mean, how are they dealing and grappling with what's going on right now?
Initially, just like Dr. Joy was saying, everybody was kind of acclimated to the new way per se, and it was, everybody was happy, etc. And then after a while, when individuals started losing their jobs, etc., and then it got to the point where we had to actually close down the churches down here. That's when it began to change, because as a pastor, I began to become a little concerned personally, because now you don't have the condiments coming to help pay the light bills, et cetera, et cetera. And then individuals weren't able to get out of their homes to do the one thing they could do on Sunday or whatever day they did it on. And all of a sudden it just became where people really started having anxiety attacks and, sending me emails, can we please start service or whatever? And I think what it also, a lot of people found out was that, how sometimes we make excuses not to go somewhere, right, and you start missing a place where you used to could go, that's always been available to you. People started wanting the doors open, and of course now, we're still closed, we're just still having everything virtual. Right. But a lot of people are just going through a lot of anxiety attacks right now, and I'm seeing a lot of that, so, hopefully sooner or later things get a whole lot better, especially now since we're talking about the vaccine, et cetera. So we'll see what happens.
So Stephanie, I want to go to you and Marie, because you both have been involved in the military, and you're in Texas and you're in Virginia, Marie. But so what is it like in the different communities there? Because I know each state is having kind of a different way that they're dealing with everything. So I'll go to Stephanie first. What is it like down in Texas, and how are you dealing with some of the military folks?
So I think for us, what's been really interesting is that we have an influx of women that aren't just from the Texas region, they're from all over the U.S., especially because we were forced to move our programming to a virtual platform, right? So now offering the MST support group and offering the art therapy and offering, a number of other programs, you're seeing women from everywhere asking for help. So, I would agree from what you said in the very beginning, you're starting to see that vulnerability. You're starting to see people address the fact that they're depressed. They're very anxious. I'll agree with Pastor Pearl that you have people that have a heightened level of anxiety now because they're having to be isolated when they were trying to get away from being isolated. And so I think we're seeing a number of factors play into the impact. And so we're seeing an influx. Unfortunately, we're seeing people reaching out for help more often.
Right. And so I just want to let everybody know that this is the open forum. If you hear something from somebody else on the panel that says that you want to address, feel free to open up and respond to it. But Maria, I want to go to you because you've done the workshops for years. I mean, you were out there traveling the world, so you've seen it from different bases all over. Like how is that affecting the sailors and the folks down in Virginia right now?
A lot of them we're under, they just opened up a lot of the restrictions and now they shut them back down again because of the increases. So the sailors are under, you can't go to see people, you can't go to your family. If you're going on leave, you have to put in special details as to what you're going to do on leave, where you're going to go, what your exposure could be. You may have even seen it in the news, the Navy itself is struggling with trying to keep their sailors healthy. And one ship captain out of San Diego said he was going to quarantine his ship for a month prior to getting underway. I'm sure it came from the best of heart, because he really wants to make sure they meet mission and he doesn't want to put risk of the sailors, their lives and their family at risk, but we can't do that. So they're struggling. We're struggling. What we see here is more you said earlier about spending time with your family, and everybody's with their family and in the house, and it was all a great thing. Well, it starts out really a great thing, but some of the experiences around here have been an increase in the domestic violence, which we're seeing across the services across the country, but they're not being able to be seen for any type of counseling. There's no place for them to go, a victim to go and get help if they need be, because it's all by appointment only. You have limited time, or it's virtual. And doing virtual doctor's appointments is okay, I guess, but trying to do a virtual counseling or obtain help virtually is a challenge. And we're going to see an increase when all this settles out and the dust settles. You're going to see a lot more things come forward, and we're not going to really be, I don't think we're going to be ready to deal with the increase, even with the military sexual trauma and all of the other assaults and harassments that are going on because of the isolation that you're keeping people.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something I want to get to, too, because, you talk about not just the fact of, being locked in, having the stress of mental health, but you talked about domestic violence. You talked about the other things that are going on because of that and the increases that we're seeing. And the virtual doctors. I mean, I had a virtual doctor appointment on my pinky, and he's like, well, it looked like you're going to have to wrap it up. So, like, it's not the same, and it's stressful for all of us. But on the sports side, I mean, Prince, what are you seeing from the athlete? Because on the other side, everybody's on the front line. I mean, the athletes are out there playing sports, in their little pods or whatever right now, and you have the sailors that are out there. They're traveling. They have to do their work. They have the nurses and doctors. The pastors out here, the counselors out here. They have to be on the front line and doing what they do. But what are you seeing that's happening in the sports world and the people that you're counseling?
I think when it comes to the sports world, it's really hard to predict because it's like a mixed signal. You're telling the players that they can go out and play, but tell them at the end of the game, make sure you don't shake hands or speak to anyone, because that's when you can pass it. And so for anyone that has common sense, it's like, well, can't we still contract the virus? Isn't there a possibility? There's a high chance. So, it's more of a conflicting thing, and I think the athletes are more so in the mindset of like, whatever, man, we're just gonna go ahead and play. Let's not be concerned about it, and let's just focus on what we have to focus on, because we need to get paid. We need to get our money, and I think that harms them more than anything, because what's that showing is telling everybody, hey, all you gotta do is just be fit, and you gotta work out. You have to be strong. But this virus is not biased towards anyone, and I think the athletes, especially college athletes, they look to the AD, their coaches, for guidance, and it's kind of hard to. I guess it's hard for the coaches and the AD to try to make a decision, because everything is bottom line. It seems like everything is bottom line. So the athletes are kind of like falling into line when it comes to professional athletes as, all right, bottom line. I guess that's the motto. For the college athletes, it's like, well, I need to get to the professional stage so I can play. So, man, it's a conflict that's going on, and it's going to turn to a mental conflict at some point in time. Once the dust settles, and I think that there's no immediate solution for what's going on. So everyone's just kind of sitting back and waiting for, like, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Like, what's going to stick? And then how do we cure it? But my motto is prevention is better than the cure. So maybe we should not, we should just pause everything and just calm down. But everyone is in a rush to make that bottom line. So the athletes are just following suit.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing that you say that, because, I want to talk about, Maurice talked about the long-term effects and issues that are going to happen that we're not even prepared for, to see how people are going to adjust once they come out from the social economic situation, from the mental stress, from isolationism, everything that we're talking about that's going on. But from a psychological standpoint, Joy, what do you think is kind of what are we looking at? That's going to be the big thing that we have to deal with after we're able to get back to some sense of normalcy.
Well, I think they're both right. Like you were just talking about with sports, the dust settling, and Marie talked about the dust settling too with the sailors. I think there's so many components to that. Just from a minor level, the fact that when we go out, we have masks on, and humans like interaction. We like to smile at each other. We like to make eye contact, like the football players you were saying, like to shake hands after a game. And that doesn't go away. It doesn't matter if you're in the military or you're in a different country, if you're wherever you are, you like that interaction. And I notice people will start saying, I can tell you're smiling with your eyes. It's like we have that thirst for interaction, and that peace and psychological component of isolation. The more we can find ways to check in with each other through things like this, it's tough. I have two 17-year-olds, and they relate Zoom right now to class. All their classes are online, every single thing. And James is right now in the other room studying for a Calculus D final that he has tomorrow. And so to tell him to check in with his friends on Zoom, he relates it to calculus, not interaction with human beings and fun. So we have to find creative ways that we're safe, but we're not contracting the virus, and we're safe, but we also have that human component that we don't lose sight of. Like Marie mentioned, the skipper that was looking at a month to put sailors in quarantine before they go on deployment. They're already going to be leaving their families for months and months, and we have to look at that human component. I know Marie firsthand, that's always on the forefront of her mind. So, and all of us, it seems like, on that team. So that's my thought process, is finding creative ways to keep that human component interaction at the forefront, so we don't wait when the dust settles and we have all of this stuff that we're trying to pick up the pieces, because we are going to be doing that. What can we do right now to be proactive to help that and be creative?
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, man. We got to go to a commercial break. This is Ray Leonard Jr. Welcome to Know Better, Do Better. Stay tuned.
There's more Know Better, Do Better with Ray Leonard Jr. coming up on The Answer San Diego. Build a better business today with Launch Team Consulting. Launch Team Consulting provides human resources, change management, and ethics training for businesses and organizations looking to create a culture of excellence. Launch Team Consulting is here to increase revenues, productivity, and teach you how to launch your business to new heights. With over 90 years of combined experience, the staff at Launch Team Consulting can help improve business performance and strategy. Visit LaunchTeamConsulting.com to learn how we strive to help business owners develop a solid foundation and solid building blocks of leadership so that they can flourish. Launch Team Consulting also offers executive coaching too, to help business leaders achieve professional goals. Contact Launch Team Consulting at 619-940-6362. That's 619-940-6362. Or visit LaunchTeamConsulting.com. That's LaunchTeamConsulting.com. Putting you on the path to success with Launch Team Consulting. Welcome back to Know Better, Do Better. Now, here's your host, Ray Leonard Jr.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Ray Leonard Jr., and this is Know Better, Do Better. We left the show last segment. We were talking about the effects on the lockdowns and stress and mental health in every single segment in all of our communities. But what I didn't do in the first segment is what I want to do first and foremost, in this segment, is get every single one of the people on the panel to kind of introduce themselves, give them a little bit of their background, so you kind of know who you're talking to, besides you Google machining everybody right now and figuring out exactly who they are, because we're on a time crunch. But I want to start out with Marie Parker first. Marie, can you tell the audience a little bit about you and what your passion is and why you're here today?
New heights. With over 90 years of combined experience, the staff at Launch Team Consulting can help improve business performance and strategy. Visit LaunchTeamConsulting.com to learn how we strive to help business owners develop a solid foundation and solid building blocks of leadership so that they can flourish. Launch Team Consulting also offers executive coaching too, to help business leaders achieve professional goals. Contact Launch Team Consulting at 619-940-6362. That's 619-940-6362. 519-940-6362 or visit LaunchTeamConsulting.com. That's LaunchTeamConsulting.com, putting you on the path to success with Launch Team Consulting.
Yeah, sure. Like Ray said when we opened up, I'm retired from the Navy, and I retired from civil service working for the Navy in April of 2019, just to stay home and start work finishing my doctorate. I work in suicide prevention, sexual assault, substance abuse prevention, and domestic violence prevention for the Navy for the last 18 years. And that was my primary. Like you heard Ray say, we traveled all over the world, and I was very, very lucky to have Ray and Joy part of our team as we went from one coast to one country to Bahrain and back again. And they've made quite an impact on some of the wellness and the readiness and the mindsets of our sailors. So that's my thing, is to make sure that our sailors have the resources, and everybody, not just sailors, but, the neighborhood kids have the resources and somebody they can talk to as they're riding their bikes and they look like they're stressed out.
Fantastic. Mr. Prince Daniels, Jr.
Yes, former NFL running back, former alumni of Georgia Tech, or alumnus of Georgia Tech, and former NFL running back, played for the Baltimore Ravens. Shortly after my career was over, because it was prematurely cut short, I had this self-identity crisis. Fell into a deep depression, suicidal ideation, suicidal attempt, and then from there, I had, say, an epiphany or an enlightenment. But the tool and the practice of meditation is something that really saved my life. And from that point on, I've been practicing mindfulness and meditation for the past decade plus. And so now what I do, I help high achievers unlock their minds so they can get out of their own way. And I help others overcome depression, suicidal thoughts, as well as just be the best version of themselves. And so I get an opportunity to work with all these incredible people. I get a chance to work with Ray, and I work with Joy on some small occasions, but I'm looking forward to working with them on some larger occasions. But my job is to be an instrument and a tool to show everybody that there is a solution. And if I have to be the example, well, I'm willing to show you, so that way you can follow in my footsteps and overcome, your hardship and your depression, and just become the best version of yourself. So,
excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being open, honest, and your inspiration, brother, with you and all your meditation and your mindfulness and everything that you do. We appreciate you. So Stephanie, we want to go to you. I think we lost Stephanie. All right, we're going to have to wait for Stephanie to come back, and I think we lost connection. But Pastor Pearl, let's go to you.
Okay. Well, I'm a pastor here in Atlanta, but I also do prison ministry. I deal with young men in both the NFL and at the collegiate level. Deal with gang members, the whole shebang. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, a section of Brooklyn called Bed-Stuy. I am a former Marine also. I'm just involved with a whole lot of different things trying to give people hope.
I think you're Marine. You're always Marine, right?
You got that right, baby boy. And, my thing about giving people hope is that it's something Maria said. When I was getting my undergrad, I wound up going to prison. And, there were some individuals who told me, you're done. Well, I finished my doctorate last year. And my thing is, again, to give people hope, to let people know that no matter what someone says about you, that doesn't make you. So that's why I spend a lot of time at all the prisons here in the state of Georgia. And that's one of the things that I have been having to deal with lately, is because I can't get to a lot of young men who are in maximum security prisons that are going through to receive that hope. So it's been stressful for me, because I'll get the phone calls from these young men and even a few young women. But I am who I am, and I do what I do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then Dr. Joy.
I think what the pastor said about checking in with people and whoever that person is, I think right now we are all going through it, and I think things resurface. Prince talked about the meditation and things that definitely work. Finding avenues to help you with cope with the stress and the anxiety and the fear that everybody's dealing with. But I think the biggest thing for me right now is being conscious of whether it's people on my phone list or people I know, that every once in a while just send a text or a phone call and just check in on them, that how important that is. Just that, I keep going back to the human contact, because like the pastor said, people are losing jobs. Marie talked about what the sailors are going through. Anybody the more we can do that as a community, just check in on each other and keep doing that, we will get through it, but we'll get through it together. If we, sit on our island and we're alone, that isolation is hard. There are resources out there. There are people out there, and I can hear it in all the voices I've heard today that people are ready to help and willing to help. What can we do together? And Ray, I commend you on putting this show together, because it's things like this. You might reach one person, something Marie says, or Prince says, or Stephanie, or the pastor says, that reaches one person out there that is listening. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. And Stephanie, tell us about, welcome back, but tell us about Pink Berets and everything that you're doing.
Yes, sir. Well, first I want to echo what Joy just said. Thank you so much for putting the show together, because it does allow us to shape the narrative around suicide prevention. So I think that it's such an important topic. There's still a stigma associated with discussing suicide prevention, and it's definitely a topic that needs to be talked about. Stephanie Gathas, as you heard in my introduction earlier, CEO and founder of the Pink Berets organization. We're based in Boerne, Texas, which is right outside of San Antonio, which is Military City, USA. And so I initially started the Pink Berets because of my own struggles. I've referenced numerous times, and I'm gonna go back to what Prince said earlier about having an epiphany. It kind of felt like that's what it was for me when I first started the Pink Berets. I needed something that would really help me with my struggles, and so we built an organization that addressed post-traumatic stress, military sexual trauma, and traumatic brain injuries, especially for women who are needing to address those invisible injuries. And so I think just being a part of this show is really going to help us highlight why it's so important to really stay in contact with one another. There's this myth that you're not supposed to talk about suicide. There's also the myth that those that do talk about suicide may not necessarily mean it. And that could not be further from the truth. If somebody shares it with you, take it seriously and act. If somebody is having a suicidal ideation, they need to get to an emergency room, because the moment you tell them you're contemplating suicide, they're going to help you right away. They're equipped with the right personnel to ensure that you get the help you need. It doesn't mean you're going to be admitted. It just means they're going to help you get through that mental health struggle. So yes, I could go on about this topic, but the prevalence is important. So
important things, because I know when I was younger and I was going through stuff, I had no idea how to deal with it or who to talk to, and I thought that I was going crazy. I had these thoughts in my head. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I felt there was something wrong with me because I felt this way. And I held it in for so long, all the issues that I dealt with, and didn't want to talk to anybody about, the feelings of the suicidal ideations, the issues, the things that I had, the stress and trauma that I went through as a young kid. And when I first got out on stage and I started to talk about it, I was like, oh my goodness. Everybody's going to look at me like I'm crazy, that I shouldn't be saying this stuff. What are they going to think about me? And I spoke for 60 minutes, and it was like the biggest relief of a burden for me, but then afterwards I felt so drained. And so I know all of you that are out there that want to help people, and then when you go out and you're trying to to put best foot forward and tell your story to help somebody else, it is draining, and it weighs on you, because I know when somebody tells me a story, it may just be my personality, but I take on their burden, and I feel it because I'm empathetic to them. So have any of you guys felt that or struggled with that this year with dealing with the people that you work with, the council? Are you dealing with even a heavier burden yourself and trying to figure out how to move forward?
Yes. I certainly do. As a matter of fact, our clinical director has asked me to stop shouldering everything because, yes, you do. You take it personally. You don't want to see anybody go down the wrong path. So,
anybody else want to jump in?
I want to add something to what Stephanie was saying, because again, a lot of times when you're dealing with a young man at a maximum security prison, he's already going through hell already, and you know the torture behind most people don't know the torture behind the wall, and the good thing is, at least when I'm able to go see him, he's at least able for a while to relax, have someone that he can talk to, someone that believes in him, someone that's going to encourage him. Whereas when he's behind that wall, behind that wall is something that outsiders can't even begin to imagine. It's chaotic, and that's why every March I usually get a couple of the kids from like the NFL or the NBA, and I take them to a place here in Georgia called Jackson, and they get a chance to go to somewhere like they go to the death house. We take them to the K-Pod, because the K-Pod is a part of the prison where guys have committed murder while in prison, because guess what? They couldn't take having people around them because of things that had happened to them in the prison system. So yes, I take it on personally with my babies, because those are my babies, and those are my babies.
Well, I want to jump into that. I want to follow up on that, Pearl, because people hear someone's in prison and they don't think that they deserve the humane treatment, or they're in prison for doing something, for making a mistake. But I would think that it's even more so an issue you're already locked down, you're already dealing with some of the stresses that from a mistake that you made, but then also you're being shut out from the rest of the world. I mean, how was that going? How do you deal with that?
First of all, there's something I want to hit. There are a lot of people that are incarcerated who are innocent. I know we automatically have this concept: if you're there, you're guilty. Right. Well, we're finding out now that there are a lot of people who've been incarcerated who are actually, innocent. But going back to what you say, guys are being put into the mental wards now. Just 2 weeks ago, I had a kid who tried to commit suicide because of they have him in a dorm that they call the Thunder Dorm, and the Thunder Dorm is where they put a lot of the young aggressive inmates at. And if you know anything, they're very creative on how to make a shank, and they're cutting each other up like it's crazy. I mean, it's just, and that's why my heart right now is really heavy for these babies, because again, at least when they see Pastor Pearl, they know there's someone that they can talk to, someone that they can trust. And just like Steph said, I take this thing personally, because I take it personally because I've been behind the wall, and then growing up in a place like Bed-Stuy, where you grew up around brothers who were in prison, and you saw places like Attica and Clinton, the severity of it. And when they come back to society, because here in the state of Georgia, what they're doing, they're just housing these kids. They're not giving these kids any kind of programs. You do your 10 years or whatever, they don't have any kind of programs to get you reacclimated to society. They just throw you back out there. Now you're scared to be around people. It's a lot.
Yeah, I want to definitely address that when we come back. I want to talk to Marie and to Prince. I mean, I want to talk to you guys about the PTSD and the isolationism and how you deal with that. But we got to go to a quick break again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Please stay tuned. This is Ray Leonard Jr. Know Better, Do Better. We'll be right back.
There's more Know Better, Do Better with Ray Leonard Jr. coming up on The Answer San Diego. Build a better business today with Launch Team Consulting. Launch Team Consulting provides human resources, change management, and ethics training for businesses and organizations looking to create a culture of excellence. Launch Team Consulting is here to increase revenues, productivity, and teach you how to launch your business to new heights. With over 90 years of combined experience, the staff at Launch Team Consulting can help improve business performance and strategy. Visit LaunchTeamConsulting.com to learn how we strive to help business owners owners develop a solid foundation and solid building blocks of leadership so that they can flourish. Launch Team Consulting also offers executive coaching too, to help business leaders achieve professional goals. Contact Launch Team Consulting at 619-940-6362. That's 619-940-6362. Or visit LaunchTeamConsulting.com. That's LaunchTeamConsulting.com. Putting you on the path to success with Launch Team Consulting.
Welcome back to Know Better, Do Better. Now, here's your host, Ray Leonard Jr.
Welcome back to the show. This is Ray Leonard Jr. and this is Know Better, Do Better. Today we're addressing mental health issues, suicide prevention, depression, all these different things that we are scared to talk about. So I have this amazing panel with me, and we were just talking about one thing that I wanted to address was kind of the PTSD and the stress and the depression and what are the signs and the issues. And so Marie deals a lot with the sailors and the military, and they're used to being underway, they're used to being away from their families, but there is some type of connection when they get to come back. Now, when you're gone for that long and you don't have that kind of time, you can't really come back to your families as much right now. What is that like? What are you seeing the stress and what are they going through?
I haven't seen a whole lot of difference in the stress level of deployment. I mean, when you go on deployment, it's my first when I went on deployment in 2000, AOL Instant Messenger was like a joy that you could talk to somebody right away. But the majority of the time you're underway, you don't have a lot of contact, and there's not a computer for every single person to utilize. However, with all that being said, what the Navy does is they really do try to ensure that there's contact back with their families while they're gone. And when they return, and Joy will know this as well, when they return, they do the return and reunions, where they fly out all the counselors to the carriers, or they helicopter them out to the ships, and they bring the Fleet and Family and Support Centers out there to talk to the individuals to get them ready for reintegration back with their family. And they've started, and what they've done for several years is they start to do reintegration with the spouses, because the spouses, I was the one that left, but then I was a spouse when my husband went on deployment. So it was kind of, you can see where you need it, because you get used to running things, and then you come back and somebody wants to take over your sandcastle. It's kind of traumatic. But they do really well. All the services do. They try to ensure that the families get the help that they need. The individuals that are suffering from PTSD, I just coincidentally I've been retired since 2004, and I am finally starting to use the Veterans Administration. I know, but it took me for a long time, but I finally had my first intake with the VA, and it was over the video. And they ask a lot of questions. They really go in depth as to your mental. I mean, I was kind of a little taken aback as to the questions they were asking me with regards to PTSD, to brain injury, to sexual trauma, had I been sexually assaulted, and the stuff like this. So they're really asking these questions to try to get the mental health perspective of those that are availing themselves of the veterans services. But that being said, there's a lot of people. I mean, I've been retired for 16 years and just did my first intake with the VA. So there's a lot of people out there that are not, a lot of veterans that are not using the VA.
Well,
so that's another thing, is to get that out there, is whether you serve 2 years, 4 years, retired, you've got these eligibilities that you can talk and get free counseling. And the ones that they've bumped up as far as having more availability is mental health.
Yes.
So those are definite options out there.
I want to address that, because when you talk about having your identity based in something, a lot of times you go into the military and then you come here, you're a soldier, you're a Marine, you're a sailor, you're airman for life, and that's your identity. It's like with PJ, he was a football player. He has identity based in that. What happens, PJ? You can start this. What happens when you have that taken away from you and you try to have to figure it out? You talk about PTSD, you talk about the stress. When you don't have that identity anymore, what is that like?
Well, first off, you're given these skills, these skills that you need to use for combat or just being on the field, right? As an athlete or a military person, and now you come back home, and now, or you're let go from being on the football field or basketball court or whatever professional sport that you play. So you come down from this high, and as soon as you come down from this high, it's just like, okay, well, I'm strong, I'm big, you know. There are things that I can do. I can go and harm people. There's so many things that you can do, and these platforms allow these individuals to release some stress, some anger that's been pent up inside of them. And so at some point in time, now when you are thrown back out there into society, it's hard to cope, because you were treated a certain way before, and now you come into the society, and if someone says the wrong thing to you, you know, you feel that you have the option to be able to strike and show them and prove to them, hey, man, do you know who I am? But that's not even your identity anymore, because now you don't have that platform, and you can't commit those things. And guess what happens? Now the law enforcement comes and gets involved. And so now you find yourself in a situation where it's just like, man, if I would have had the time to think about these things, if there was a program to help me reacclimate myself to where I'm going, what I'm doing, the things that I need to look forward to, you know, I could probably have some help. And for me, I struggle. I really struggle with that, man. You know, I found myself, you know, I've been fortunate. You know, I find myself in situations where I have a gun put up to my head, and I'm just like saying to myself, like, okay, should I get mad, or should I just, you know, whimper like a coward? And I said to myself, well, why don't you just be still and not do anything, and just pray that you can make it back home to your mother before the morning time comes. And so what I had to start learning how to do was talk to myself and say, okay, what am I here to do on this planet? Because now your questions have to start becoming a little bit deeper than you know, what level of success am I trying to reach? Now you have to start thinking about, you know, like, what's my purpose here in life? Like, you know, how is my soul connected to something? Like, who am I? You know, and for soldiers, it goes a little bit deeper, because now, you know, if they had to put down someone in combat, you know, it goes to like, oh, okay, I have a, how do you I don't know the proper term to say it, but, you know, most people say, like, call a body, or I had to, you know, shoot someone and kill someone, and for them, they are questioning themselves, like, was that right? Was I supposed to do that? And that's trauma as well, because you've just taken a life, and so you try to put everything in perspective for yourself and for your loved ones, but it's difficult, because you're struggling, because no one can give you any answers, no one can talk to you and talk to you about the things that are relatable to your situation that you're going through. And so for me, I had found meditation, and I know I hear the same thing whenever we talk about, you know, isolation. A lot of people have a difficult time with isolation, and what happens is we don't like some of the decisions and choices that we made in our life, so it's hard to sit down with ourselves. That's just like if I put you in a room with somebody that you hate, you're not going to want to sit in that room with them. You're going to be like, man, get me out of this room. Just like Pastor Pearl was saying, just like, you know, I don't want to be around anybody. Don't nobody touch me. You touch me, I have to go to the extreme to kill you, because you don't know who I am. Matter of fact, I don't know who I am. So please get away from me, because I am very volatile and very dangerous. And so, like, it's just the mind, and it's something that we have to start tapping into. And right now, I don't think we're using our money to tap into that, to help psychologists, you know, be on the forefront of helping these individuals, because everything is mental. Everything that we do is mental. And so if we're not mentally there helping these individuals, you know, to cope with their new lifestyle and find and adapt to a new identity, then I think our mental health state in America is in jeopardy.
So it's interesting what you said, and Marie said something to this effect as well. You talked about being thrown back out into the world, and Marie talked about it earlier. What's going to happen once we're out of this lockdown, and how do we prepare for that? You look at life, and life is a series that your time here on this world is a series of split-second decisions. And I'm seeing people making the wrong decision in split seconds even more after you come out, or they're having the stress, or they're going getting outside the house and they're drinking too much, or they're having issues within the home. Like how do we make a change with that? How do we deal with that so we're not putting people back out once we have some sort of sense of normalcy, that we're not just thrown back into the world as we say?
One of the things I was taking note of today is they're talking about the stimulus and the money that they're putting forth for vaccine distributions, and all of this money that they're putting forth now that they're going to have to put forth in the future. But I haven't heard anything about mental health. There's been no funding that's been put forth, no efforts, no increase in mental health support in any of these cities. In New York City, your daughter's up there. That place is going to need a lot of help just for the fact that their whole lifestyle has been disrupted. I'm from Texas. My family's in Beaumont, Texas, and they're having huge challenges down there with mental health programs. So how do we enforce, or to get the word to our legislators that you have to think ahead and you have to be proactive, vice reactive, military saying, that you have to get ahead of this, because once this vaccine takes place and we can rip off our masks and smile at everybody, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be faking through those smiles. And how do we give them the help that they need to be successful again, as they lost businesses, they've lost loved ones, they've lost income, they've lost jobs, they're going to lose their homes. So all that stuff is increasing this mental health need that we are not ready to support as a country.
No, hold that thought, because Pastor Pearl, I want to come back and talk to you about the spiritual side of it and how you deal with this. But I got to go to a quick commercial break. Got to pay some bills. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Know Better, Do Better. I'm Ray Leonard Jr. Be right back.
There's more Know Better, Do Better with Ray Leonard Jr. coming up on The Answer San Diego. Build a better business today with Launch Team Consulting. Launch Team Consulting provides human resources, change management, and ethics training for businesses and organizations looking to create a culture of excellence. Launch Team Consulting is here to increase revenues, productivity, and teach you how to launch your business to new heights. With over 90 years of combined experience, the staff at Launch Team Consulting can help improve business performance and strategy. Visit LaunchTeamConsulting.com to learn how we strive to help business owners develop a solid foundation and solid building blocks of leadership so that they can flourish. Launch Team Consulting also offers executive coaching too, to help business leaders achieve professional goals. Contact Launch Team Consulting at 619-940-6362. That's 619-940-6362. Or visit LaunchTeamConsulting.com. That's LaunchTeamConsulting.com. Putting you on the path to success with Launch Team Consulting. Welcome back to Know Better, Do Better. Now, here's your host, Ray Leonard Jr.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is Ray Leonard Jr. Welcome back to Know Better, Do Better. We have an amazing conversation. I hope you guys are enjoying the panel and everything that we're trying to bring up, and addressing some subjects that are tough to deal with. We're talking about isolationism. We're talking about mental health issues. We're talking about suicidal ideations and depression, and how you overcome that, and how we're going to be stronger once we come out of this whole lockdown and this craziness that we're going through. But one of the things Marie was talking about is how do we deal with how the government going to help us out, and what are they going to do? But if we're looking at them, that's like the Titanic trying to move, an iceberg. So, I mean, everything happens pretty slow during that time. But what else can we do? When I know a big thing for me has been my faith into believe in higher power and meditation and issues like that to kind of get me out of the stress in this situation that I can. So I want to go to Pastor Pierce first and say, how do we look at spirituality, no matter where you're coming from or whatever religion or background that you're in? How do you look at spirituality to help us right now to overcome some of these situations?
First of all, when I'm talking to individuals who are believers or whatever the case may be, because a lot of times people want to act like mental health isn't real. I'm just going to pray and it's going to go away. And I have to be very, very real within and I use examples of great men and women in the Bible. Like, you look up like Joshua, and I'll talk about David and such, and even a great man like Elijah. So I want them to first of all understand that mental health is a real thing, and don't be ashamed. And then what I do, I use myself as an example. I said earlier how I had, been incarcerated, and once I got out of incarceration, instead of them shipping me home to New York, they kept me in the state of Georgia. And I'll never forget the night when I had nowhere to go but to the woods. And I remember very strongly saying, you know what, if I had a gun, I'd just blow my brains out. Because here it is, I'm a former champion fighter. Everybody loves me. And now I can't get anybody to send me $10 down here in Georgia. But what I had, there's an old scripture that I love, and it's in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9. It says, you know what? I command you to be strong and courageous, because no matter where you go, I'm going to be right there. And that's how I had to look at things. But I will say this to you also. I was challenged again, because as you know, Ray, in 1991, February the 1st, I lost my twin sister. And here it was, I was beginning to walk in faith and everything. And here she was a sweetheart, and she had her issues because she loved to deal with her drugs. But I was the one who was doing treacherous stuff. And I just didn't understand it. And I wound up spending 2 weeks in a mental health facility here in Atlanta. And I tell people about it, because I have to be very transparent with people. I'm not afraid of what somebody thinks about me, because I believe my testimony will help deliver someone else. But the biggest thing is I use my testimony. I tell them about what the Word of God is about, having faith, not walking by sight, but just trusting God. And God's going to get you through it. But there's some work you have to do also, and that is that you got to believe. You have to believe. As I heard Prince talk about the higher power, well, I know who my higher power is, but I'm very transparent. I don't care if I'm at a prison or wherever. What you get is what you get, because I am what I am, as I said earlier. I didn't go through the things I went through just to try to be a phony or hide things. God allowed me to go through so that I could help those who are now going through come out of what they're in.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about judgment in the release. I think for me that was the biggest fear of what somebody else would think about me and being judged and being able, if I told my story, if I said this and then it was going to be a major issue, or I had this burden that whatever I was going through or whatever I thought was important, that was like the end of the world to me, wasn't important to anybody else. I think we're going to have a lot of those situations of people that, like my oldest son he just finally broke down the other day because it looks like we won't have a football season, his senior season out here for high school. But for him, that's the biggest thing in the world to him right now in his life. And, as strong as he's tried to be, that kind of just broke him down, that one day that he heard that, the governor said, no, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And so he held out hope until that final minute. How do we continue to have hope when we know when things look so bleak? Anybody can go for that one.
I was going to add that it's hard to rectify the things that are going wrong right now, right, in our current climate. So, and I was thinking a lot about this as I was hearing everybody talk, that, yes, things seem bleak and somber, but at the same time, it is our opportunity to rise above. It is our opportunity to really take advantage of the things we couldn't take advantage of before. So in reference to your son, it's an unfortunate thing for him to have to miss out on something that would have been so profound for him right now. But I think it will fuel that fire in him to continue working on his talent, his gift, and not to let COVID determine his outcome. I remind people, I told somebody this just the other day, if you are in charge of your destiny, you are responsible for you. And I know it might seem easy for me to say that, but at the end of the day, that is the reality. So you have to You have to get yourself out of a slump and really start to look for ways to be healthy. Much to what Prince said earlier, meditation is definitely key right now, but also reaching out to people, participating if you have to virtually in something that will make you feel better about your current situation.
Oh, fantastic. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yes, to second that. Thank you for that, Stephanie. I know, Joy, I'm trying to make it short. What I'll say is that, I'm feeling. People call me and tell me, thank you for being so transparent and speaking about something that people consider as weak. And when they say that to me, I'm like, I never really thought about it like that. I just thought about it as I need to come out and tell people that, hey, I try to kill myself. And I really don't care about what other people think about that. Because what I'm saying is, look, man, I struggle. And a lot of people know me as having supreme confidence in everything that I do. But there's something that you go through, and there's sometimes at some point in time in your life, you question like your existence and why am I here and what am I doing? And for me, for right now, prevention is better than the cure. So I don't think the government is going to do anything to help anyone out on the mental side of things. And I just have to say it and just be very blunt about it, because it's about the bottom line. Every single conversation is about the bottom line. As Marie said, she was just like, well, we want to kind of sit back and see what they're going to do. Well, they probably won't do anything, and if they do something, we will have waited for so long. The boat would or the bus or the ship will probably have sailed on by or drove on by. So what I'm saying is, give these young adolescents a tool that they can use so they can start working on themselves at a younger age, because now I don't think anybody is going to help out the older adults. And so what we have to do is find community with amongst ourselves and with other people, and start practicing these things like mindfulness and meditation and going to church and actually sitting down, closing your eyes, and reminding ourselves that it's going to be all right, because we made it through. We made it this far in life, and there's much more life to be lived. So what we have to do is make sure that remember that we're human beings that are resilient, and we have a gift inside of us, and if we take the time to look within, we will find that salvation, that love that keeps us going. So thank you.
Prince, thank you for telling your story, because what I said earlier about reaching people, even if it's one person, your words and what you've been through, thank you so much for sharing that, because you will reach people, and I know you do. Every day you and Ray speak together and do shows together, and I have the honor to be on the show with you. So thank you for saying that. And when you're talking about reaching youth, I think that, like for Jalen, Ray, when we were talking about what they're going through, every day it's a struggle of change for our youth and what they do. And they're facing, we look at suicide and the thoughts that they're having on a day-to-day basis. And so the tools that we can give them, just verbal things that they can think about. One of them is what grounds you. And, what is something that helps ground you? Like if it's Jalen watching videos and working out or whatever in his life grounds him, those are the things that help you move forward. And so, I was blessed to be raised in a family where my parents said, bad things happen to good people, and it's what we do after. How do we cope with things? We're going to get a flat tire. We're going to get things happen in life, whether they're small or big. What do we do after? And I keep going back to together, but I think panels like this, we are going to be the change. We are going to make the difference in giving people the thought process to have as we get through this. Yes, like Ray said, the government is going to have their part in working on things, but from the mental health aspect, what do we do together? And do we keep having these conversations? I think we give people grace. I think people are short-tempered when we're out. If you can offer a little grace and kindness to people. I know, Pastor, when you're in the prison, they're in there and they cannot escape from someone that has been exposed, or they're facing other things that we don't even think about. My sister worked in a maximum security prison for 10 years as a dentist. And people used to ask her, how do you do that? How do you work? And she goes, it's not my job to judge other people. My job is to treat people with dignity and respect and work on their teeth and give them a comfortable, whatever their appointment is. And I think we need to look at life like that. We're going through this pandemic, and we're all going through it. The world is going through it. So what do we do together to make that experience? How do we keep treating people with dignity and respect? How do we keep taking care of each other? And I think we do that together. We find resources, we find tools, and we keep being creative.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you all for that. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you. This was a fantastic panel. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope I helped somebody today. We helped somebody learn something. And in the immortal words of the great Maya Angelou and my grandfather, do the best that you can till you know better. And when you know better, you do better. This is Ray Leonard Jr. Peace. See you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for joining us for Know Better, Do Better with Ray Leonard Jr. To learn more about the show and how to become a guest or sponsor, visit RayLeonardJr.com. That's RayLeonardJr.com. You can also follow Ray on social media at Ray Leonard Jr. Join us again next week at this same time as we learn to create a better path to progress for the future from those who have risen, fallen, made mistakes, lived, and learned. This has been Know Better, Do Better with Ray Leonard Jr.